Welcome back to Anti-Depressing. This is the show where we talk about everything from liturgy
to Lexapro.
Woo! And today about singlehood.
You know what? I know that like all Catholics listening, don't immediately turn it off. Stay.
Don't turn it off.
No, because this is going to be really good. We promise. We have like hopeful results here. We have people that have really been in the fields like tilling, and they are doing the work. And so don't even worry about it. You got to stay here. This is a hopeful episode.
It's going to be great.
This is going to be a great episode.
Leading
so thank
with hope,
you.
Anti-depressing.
Yeah. So thank you for staying here. Remember that the world is depressing, but we are not. So this is going to be a great episode. We're so excited to have our friend Anastasia with us today. This is going to rock. I know, just a name drop. This is going to rock. We're so excited to have you, to have her, and to have you guys listen. So welcome, Anastasia. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted.
Yes. Anastasia, tell us a little bit about you as a person.
Oh, sure. Well, let's see. Besides being single a long time.
That's her main qualification, to be here speaking to you.
I'm the oldest of 9 children. I love being from
awesome.
a big family. I have 5 sisters, 3 brothers. I love hiking and good conversation, music, having a good time. And I fell in love with John Paul II's Theology of the Body back in 2000. And through my family's media apostolate, we started promoting his work. And then somehow I ended up organizing conferences, which is really interesting or ironic, I suppose, because I was distinctly remember being at a conference and talking to the woman in charge who was running the whole thing about where we were going to set up our recording equipment and everything. And she had all these people interrupting, like coming up in the hallway, asking her questions when I'm just trying to find out one little piece of information. And I stood there and I thought, oh goodness, I'm so glad I'm not running this conference. I would not want to be in charge of a conference. Anyway, God had the sense of humor because within a couple of years, I was running conferences on the theology of the body. And then a friend of mine said, why don't you do something for singles? And I'm like,
that's
okay,
awesome.
you know.
And here she is 20
So cool.
conferences later. Is it 20?
It's our 23rd conference. Yeah, but some years we've had 2. So it's we're almost about to hit the 20-year mark.
Wow. 20 years, 23rd conference.
That's incredible.
That's incredible. Wow.
Oh, well, thank you. I think I would have died if somebody told me that I would still be doing it.
That's probably why God was like, let's keep it on the download. Let's not tell her how long she's going to be doing this
It's
for.
not going to be 20 years.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be 20 years because she'll definitely say no. So this is good.
That's so true.
Good. Wow.
But yeah, thank you for your yes. We're so excited to dive more into what you do at your conferences. But first, we want to kick this off with a little anti-depressing Catholic news. And I know you have some to share. You've been doing some non-sad Catholic things this summer. So tell us about what you have been up to.
Oh, yes. Well, I was very excited to be able to attend the Congress. And I will say, since you were asking for anti-depressing Catholic news, right before I came to that, I was at my uncle's celebration for his 50th anniversary as a priest.
Oh,
and
that's amazing.
so
That's awesome.
Seeing that kind of witness and connection and the other priests there that were celebrating their jubilees. Some of them were 50, some were 25, some were 60 or more years. And so just seeing that commitment and their yes for so many years was very inspiring. But yes,
That's
going
amazing.
to the Congress in Indianapolis and just, having 60,000 people there and worshiping Jesus and excited to be there and excited to be Catholic. That was amazing.
That's incredible. That's
awesome.
incredible. Can you tell us a little about like the singles event at the Congress? This is becoming more common. I feel like that all of a sudden there's singles events at big congresses, or maybe I just all of a sudden am noticing. I don't really know, but
They're starting to be like, let's have something let's think about who the majority of people coming to this thing is. And then let's start having some gathering.
Let's talk about that.
I mean, there is a saying, right? Like, where there is food, they will come. And they had pretty good snacks there. So I feel so I feel like they're starting
to get them in the door.
Yeah, they're starting to rope us in. But please, like, share about your experience there. I heard and I was also there, that some of the, the panelists were great. It was a full room. But what was your
Exactly.
experience?
Yes, no, they had a great turnout, and I was very happy to be able to help promote the event as a co-sponsor. I loved working
Awesome.
with Sarah. They did all the heavy lifting. I just, helped get the word out some. But it was really neat to see that, because you're right. For so many years, people have, I think people have been allergic to the word single, and that it's hard to have a conference with the word single on it, because then people are like, oh, you either don't want to admit you're single, or they think everything for singles is like some meat market thing. And it's just like, oh my goodness. Anyway, so it was great to have that, just to see that was at the Congress, that Sarah with the Catholic Project, they, took the initiative to hold that. And then the panelists were great, and I think actually they could have gone on for a couple more hours with the discussion and opinions on dating, and then hearing from the people in the audience, and the food was great too, to boot. So,
Of course. I love that.
So yeah, it was good to be there, and to have that available. And I do hope that the church continues to see that there's that need for singles, and also not to just say it's just for young adults, because that's what I get too. Like, oh, it's all, your conference. Oh, and speak to the young adults. I once had a bishop do that with celebrating Mass. He's talking about all you young people. I'm like, okay, well, some people are young people, and some people don't feel so young. So, but I'm very happy we have something for singles of all ages. So we have, a bunch of young adults, but then people that maybe don't feel quite so young.
Absolutely. How do you cater, like specifically for your conference, shifting gears, how do you try to like be intentional in either like your language or how you promote, so that it's evident that you're talking to all singles, and try to like encourage maybe older singles who don't feel like, oh, I'm in my mid 20s to mid 30s, so this is for me. Like, how do you kind of cater to people outside of that range?
Sure. I mean, for one thing, we just put all singles on our, singles of all ages on our announcements and things like that. But then also, in the pictures from past conferences that we have, you can see that there's people of all ages attending. And I know sometimes people might be a little bit nervous about that or something, but really the feel of it when you get there is like one big family, and it's like, wow, there's all these people in the church that are also single, that also go through some of the same struggles I do. And we're here together. I'm not the only one, because I think sometimes when you're in your parish church, depending on where you live, you're sitting in the pew, you might feel like, oh, everybody around me is married and has a spouse, has kids. And so you feel like you're kind of alone. So I think coming to the conference definitely is kind of like a little shot in the arm of encouragement. Like, yes, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. I'm not just a weirdo.
There's hope on the horizon. And from the pictures that I saw on your website, it looks as well like, I mean, there were people surfing. I think I saw there were people surfing, people dancing.
Yes,
I mean, it's
so joyful.
It looks like
a
hodgepodge, right? So it also looks like a great place to just, because sometimes, which I think, one of my friends that went to the singles thing at the Congress with me, she was like, oh, well, I hope this doesn't turn into just like a vent session, which is good. It's like good to vent, and it's good to get that out, because 'tis the reality of life. But it's also good to be like, there's hope, like Jasmine was saying, there's like hope on the horizon, and like everything will be okay, right? And so it seems like y'all have a good mix. I mean, there were a lot of smiling faces in those pictures, which you can't like make those up. So how do you keep that balance of, keeping it up here where you're like, there's hope, you guys, while also addressing the fact that some people are like, man, I've been single for a minute, and like, I'm kind of ready to find my person. Like, how do you keep that energy up?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, with the talks and everything at the conference, I always try to have it pretty well balanced to address different areas in our lives, being single, whether it be personal growth and holiness, relationships, how to have good relationships. Sometimes we have talks on male-female brain science and communication, and
cool.
And then also just the aspect of evangelization, that we're all called to we're all called to give our lives to Christ and to be living for his kingdom now, in the present moment, whatever state of life we're in. And so I think hearing that, and so that the difficulty, the challenges of being single are acknowledged, but then also, we're not called to, sit in a pity party, right? We're called to use our gifts and talents and everything the Lord's given us for him and to bring other people closer to him and be his presence in the world. So I think that, kind of radiates out and affects the whole mood of the conference as well. And it's, community is joyful. It's joyful to be with other people. And we just have a lot of great people that show up. So it's a good time.
That's beautiful. Do you have obviously you started this a long time ago. Did you have an initial this is why I want to start it, this is my goal of it, and has that kind of shifted throughout the 20 years of having conferences and as you've kind of grown and learned from people?
Well, when I started it, I was thinking of it kind of from the formation aspect. So when I started, I was in my 20s, and this friend that recommended, hey, you should do something for singles. He was 40. And so then I also actually was about the same time I was at a Theology of the Body conference, and Mary Beth Bonacci, it was one of the early ones, when we first started having them. It's Family Honor who put that one on. But Mary Beth Bonacci was there talking about singles and the theology of the body. And so just this whole sort of arrangement of circumstances, I thought, oh, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do something. But, when you're in your 20s, you might not think about the importance of that as much. And then kind of you get older, you're like, oh, you're right. My friend is right. There aren't many things for singles. So I did it for that reason. But then also I thought, well, you know what? If we all knew what it means to be male and female and how to have good relationships, then we would have better dating relationships and therefore better marriages. And so that was the idea. I did it for the formation aspect. Like I said, I love John Paul II's theology of the body and how you can apply it to so many different areas of life. And so I started it for that. But then, of course, it's a Catholic conference, and we have Mass, adoration. We have an adoration chapel there the whole time. So that's very powerful. And so I started to see that this was, there are people that come that are very Catholic and very involved in the church. And then there's people that come that maybe they're more single than they are Catholic, but they saw it in their bulletin, and they come and then they come back to confession after not being at confession for 20 years or something. And so, or they see that, oh, wow, my faith is not just about Mass on Sunday. It's so much more than that. And so people's faith is enlivened. And so that has been amazing because I want people to encounter Christ in a deeper way. That's kind of the goal of life, right? So if we get that part, that's important. And then the aspect I honestly didn't realize was so important was the community aspect. So when I started it, I'm like, oh, that's nice, get all these people together. But then I see over the years, the relationships that are built, friendships. There's a bunch of girls that have been, going on a girls' trip every year for how many years now since they met back in '08 or something. And so there's the Catholic community is so important. And I've realized that, over the years. And so I'm like, oh, God knew that there's this need for singles in the church to have community. And so I guess he wanted some venue for that. So, so in that sense, it's, it shifted a little bit insofar as oh, this is really important that we have not only the faith and the formation part, but the fellowship part. And so that's been a realization, I suppose. So it hasn't really changed, but it wasn't my initial oh, I'm going to start this for community, God knew, even though I didn't, right?
Yes. Yeah. I really, really love the approach of I don't know, when I think Catholic singles conference, like you were saying, anything for singles, it feels okay, and then we're going to, play bingo and you're going to meet your spouse. We're going to really push for you're meeting your spouse by the end of this weekend is sometimes the energy of singles events. And so I like that your approach, you didn't mention anything about, you're saying this is for formation. This is for you to become essentially the best version of you and the best Catholic you can be, the best man, the best woman you can be, so that you're prepared for life, whatever life looks like. You're prepared for a future partner, but also your life's just going to be better if you're more confident in who you are as a person. And it's not just this means to an end. So I really love that approach. That's really beautiful.
Well, yeah. And then if people do meet their spouse, then that's amazing. And people have, for
Yeah.
example, my sister met her husband in 2009 and they now
my
have 7
gosh.
children. So
That's amazing. Is that like your most
beautiful.
proud couple setup at the event? Or do you have one that you're like, oh, this was like really, this felt good?
oh, well, no, it's my sister and her husband, because
Of
I
course.
wouldn't have all these beautiful nieces and nephews.
I
And
know. You essentially
actually-
did that for yourself, which is amazing.
well,
Like, that's-
they were both volunteering because my sister was always helping me.
Oh.
And then the other guy, my brother-in-law, had come as a volunteer, kind of
oh
was
my
dragged
gosh,
along.
so
And
sweet.
then he met my sister and like, oh. And so he always teases about, having to pay for the conference, because I'm like, oh, hey, you got a volunteer rate, number one. And number two, it was the
You
best
got a wife.
$125 you ever spent, right?
And he's like, yeah.
so
You
good.
got him there. You got him there.
It was worth it. It was all worth it. On that note, at the event, do you have like intentional mingling? Like, here's more potentially meet somebody events in the conference, or is it more in just kind of a casual way for people to do on their own?
Well, we do have like our opening mixer on Friday night.
Okay.
And that's taken all sorts of forms, from, having to find somebody in the crowd that has, this, that, or has done this, gone bungee jumping, or, you have your list, right? And so you go try and find somebody that does that. Or
Yeah.
we've done Catholic trivia. We've done all sorts of different things for like the first thing, just because people come, and some people come with friends, but some people come alone and don't know anybody. And so this
Yeah.
way they get to meet each other. And then after the opening talk, we also have a reception, like heavy hors d'oeuvres reception,
Love
a
that.
cash bar. And so then there's that opportunity to socialize. And then on Saturday, we have lunch together. We have a dance Saturday night. So there's a lot of opportunities. And I think by the time the dance comes, a lot of people have made connections. And so the other thing is that we have pre and post conference events, and those have really grown over the years, starting from a hike in Colorado. The first conference we had, one friend took a bunch of people in the mountains, said, we're going to go on a hike and come to my house for pizza afterwards. So that was the first post conference event, and 70 people went. So
Wow.
I don't know how they did that, but but now people come in as early as Tuesday night, or Wednesday, and do events on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And it's kind of like the big vacation. It's all optional, obviously, but
Yeah.
it gives a much more relaxed setting for people to meet and organically. And then we have had different people host speed dating events at the conference. That's not been like an official part of the conference either, but there have been people that are experienced with that. And this year too, we have somebody that ran speed dating events for 5 years in person. So he's been responsible for several, over 100 successful speed dating events. And so
Wow.
he and his wife are going to host that at our conference as one of the pre
cool.
and post events too. So it's a great way to meet a bunch of people quickly. And, we always try and keep the atmosphere light and fun. And, hey, it's like, if you're interested, you can have a coffee date. It's not a marriage proposal, so don't stress about it.
I love that perspective.
That's a word. That's a word. Buying me an iced matcha is not asking me to be your wife. It is not equivalent. So
This just in.
this just in. You can spend 20 minutes drinking a drink, and that in no way advances a relationship in such a serious way. Wow.
It's not that deep.
World
It's
changing.
just a matcha.
World changing. My gosh. Well, this sounds so great.
So great.
I know that we would love to hear, just like, as we would love to, you probably have, you have 20 years of like, you're behind the scenes. You're in the trenches with the rest of us, right? And so you're really doing the work. So first, God bless you. And second, you've also probably seen so many people come to you and share about their experiences, and you've probably given counsel to some people as well. And we would just love to hear, like, what kind of advice would you give to single Catholics, whatever life experience they're in. We wish we could spend like 4 hours talking with you, but like, as we round out this episode, like what kind of parting advice would you give to single Catholics other than go to this conference?
Oh, yes. Well, and then just let me mention really quick before I
Yes.
Yeah.
does that. If you can't get to the conference in person, we do have our online version too, where you can live stream the sessions.
So nice.
And then we actually, it's not just watching them, but we have small group facilitators, and they have small group discussions and online socials. So it is a real way that you can encounter people and talk about the content you're hearing and still participate in it's not the same as being there in person, right? But it's,
there's still something.
A nice
and
options. And can people still register for this year? Tell us how to do that.
Word.
The dates of that, what that looks like, quick.
Oh, sure. August the 16th through the 18th. So it's coming up very quickly. Not this weekend, but next weekend. And then the website is nationalcatholicsingles.com. And all the information for the conference is on there, both in person and virtual, plus all of our other programs and opportunities we have throughout the year. So
amazing.
nationalcatholicsingles.com. Definitely come. And if you put the code in Anti-Depressing if you want to come in person, then that code will give you a discount. No dash in the middle, just Anti-Depressing.
Just the whole thing. Smush it together.
Smush it together.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And if anyone finds the love of their lives, you have an invitation, which we have to run by our producer, and I haven't talked to Jasmine about yet, but to come on our show and tell us about it. Yeah.
Tell us your origin story.
You have to come and tell us about it.
We love that stuff.
We love that stuff.
We love that stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chanel, back to your question. Yes. What advice do you have for just
people
I would say, who are out there?
Oh, yeah. Well, it can be a hard, challenging road, but I would say because we're made, for a relationship. But I would say, first of all, if you know your worth in God's eyes and your fulfillment is in Him, then you're not going to be feeling as empty, not having that special someone in your life, right? And I know that for my journey has been a long one, just as far as different relationships. But I've always wanted to be married, but never have. And at one point, I realized that I was idolizing marriage, and so I realized, oh, you know what, Jesus is my Lord, and He's the one that I have to look for fulfillment in. And so that has been super helpful. Also realizing just the fruitfulness of spiritual motherhood. It's not the same as giving birth to a baby. I don't pretend it is, and nobody should, but there is a real value to that. And so I think we all desire that fulfillment and that fruitfulness. And so if we see that in our lives in other ways, that we're making a gift of ourselves and have that community of relationships, and that can be, bring a lot of fruit and a lot of joy. And so, and also just not giving up hope. Like, the goal of our life isn't marriage, right? The goal of our life is sainthood and holiness, right? And living out that vocation to love. But we're much more attractive as far as being a future spouse, and we're much more prepared to be a future spouse and really make that sacrifice, because it is a sacrifice when you marry, right? So you're much more prepared for that if you're in a good frame of mind and have your priorities right, and already kind of in a self-giving mode. And so, don't put your life on hold. Don't say, I'm just going to wait until I get married to do X, Y, and Z. Go do X, Y, and Z. But at the same time, make sure that you have that availability as a single person and aren't so busy that you can't, afford a time for a date if you're asked, right? Or you kind of have to be intentional too, and not just kind of think that God's going to drop your spouse from the sky, which, I mean, maybe He might, but, it's more likely that you're going to have to do things that put yourself in places where there's other single people, or you might have to get online even if you don't want to. My brother and his wife, they met on Catholic Match. So, there's that too. And so you just kind of have to walk that balanced tightrope of surrender to Jesus and where you are in your life and living that in joy. And at the same time, staying open to the, and staying hopeful, that even though God doesn't guarantee us a spouse, that He can bring one at any time in our lives. Yeah. And we have to be prepared for that.
Wow. Well, that's a word.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful. And I feel like you're speaking to a lot of these ladies that are out here listening and the men that are hopefully also listening. And thank you for speaking that life into all of us, because I love what you said about like, you know, you don't have to start your life once you're in a relationship. You know, obviously for my dear friends that are married, they'll share often about how like, you know, parts of their life, a big part of their life didn't feel like it started until they had children or, you know, because obviously like that's a new transition of life and that's a beautiful transition of life. But also you can still have fun. You could still do things.
You're still living the whole time.
You're still living. You could still
crazy.
have like intimate friendships. Some of my closest friendships are with my friends that are married. I want to caveat that because that came out a little strange with my friends that are married in friendship. And it's just like such a gift to have them in my life because they teach me through their marriage in probably ways that they didn't know. And if I wasn't open, by being, you know, because I know for some of us single people out there, we can also just be so like anti being friends with people that aren't single that I would have missed it. So, you know, so it's just a really beautiful thing, like you were saying, to just stay open to folks because you don't know what you'll miss. So it's a beautiful thing. And we so appreciate you being with us. You have really blessed us with your time. And for everyone listening as well, I mean, Anastasia's truly God's strongest soldier because it is very early in the morning.
So early.
And she's
here for you.
And she's here for you. She's blessing you. And she's saying like, not only do I want y'all to be enriched by hopefully coming or live streaming or participating in this conference, but I also just want to speak a word of life onto you, that your life does not end if you do not get married tomorrow or in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Like things will be okay. So
there's always hope.
There's always hope. So if that is the word that you carry with you for the rest of the day, that is what we would like to leave you with.
Absolutely. Anastasia, do you have any final things you want to say to the anti-depressing community?
I would just say that what popped into my head was John Paul II's word, and it's also in, I believe, the Catechism. But just that he said that I think it's Familiaris Consortio that the single people are especially close to the heart of Jesus, and so he, even though not much is said, I hold that close to my heart too. That Jesus, we're all close to his heart. Being single, he knows our pain and difficulty, and that any suffering in there, and we unite to his, is very rich and very fruitful. And he wants to use us in the world in a very powerful way. So if we let him and we let him love us and we trust, trust is a big thing. Like, oh my gosh, trust Jesus. He's going to take care of you.
I love that. Beautiful. Thank you so much for leaving us with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jasmine, you say it best. So, I mean, I'm just going to let you do it.
The world is depressing, but we are not, you guys. So. We said bookended that in this episode. We really wanted to emphasize that. We are not sad.
We are not sad. So we hope that you found some joy from this episode. We surely did. I will go to bed not in tears for the first time. No, just kidding.
Oh my gosh.
That got so dark. No, we hope you found some joy from this episode. We did. It was a pleasure to have you on. And we hope that if you're interested in going to the conference, that you check it out. Even if you're not interested,
absolutely.
Maybe you give it a chance.
Vegas. We didn't even mention that.
Vegas is fun. Vegas is also so fun. And you maybe I don't know, you can catch a Bruno Mars show on a free day.
You never know.
You never know what
so
could be
true.
The possibilities of fun. There's so many ice creams, so many foods. I mean, there's so many intentional dates you can go on. Yeah, so check it out. We're so happy to have you here. And Anti-Depressing friends, we will see you very soon.
See you soon. Thank you, Anastasia.